In a small, quiet town nestled between the rolling hills and golden fields, there stood a worn-out house at the end of Maple Street. The paint was peeling, the porch steps creaked, and the fence leaned slightly to one side, but inside that house lived a woman whose heart had more warmth than all the homes in the neighborhood combined. Her name was Clara Evans. Clara was a retired nurse in her late 60s. Her husband had passed away years ago, and her children had moved to different cities, busy with their own families and lives. Though she lived alone, she never let loneliness take root. She spent her days tending to her small garden, baking cookies for the neighbors, and volunteering at the community shelter. Her house might have been old, but her spirit was timeless, always finding ways to give, to help, and to care. One particularly cold winter morning, Clara was making her way back from the grocery store when she noticed a small figure huddled near the bus stop. The figure was wrapped in a thin, torn jacket, shivering against the wind. As Clara approached, she realized it was a young boy, perhaps 12 or 13 years old. His eyes were tired, and his face was pale with cold. He looked up when he heard Clara's footsteps. "Are you all right, dear?" Clara asked softly, adjusting the scarf around her neck. The boy hesitated before nodding weakly. "I'm fine, ma'am," he said, though his trembling hands betrayed his words. "You don't look fine," she replied kindly. "You look frozen. Where are your parents?" He looked down at the ground, saying nothing. Clara could see the uncertainty in his eyes, the kind of fear that comes from having nowhere to go. Her heart tightened. "Well," she said after a moment, "you can't stay out here in this weather. Come with me. We'll get you warm and fed." The boy hesitated again, but the biting wind made the choice for him. Slowly, he stood up and followed Clara back to her little house at the end of the street. Inside, the air was warm and smelled faintly of cinnamon and baked bread. Clara led him to the kitchen, poured him a cup of hot chocolate, and placed a plate of cookies in front of him. "What's your name, sweetheart?" she asked. "Eli," he said quietly between sips. "That's a nice name," she smiled. "Well, Eli, you're safe here. Eat as much as you want." Eli didn't need to be told twice. He devoured the cookies as if he hadn't eaten in days. Clara watched him carefully, noticing the dirt on his hands, the holes in his shoes, and the sadness in his eyes. After a while, she spoke again. "Eli, do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" He shook his head. "I was trying to get to the next town," he said softly. "But I ran out of money. My mom, she got sick last year. After she passed away, I went to live with my uncle, but he wasn't kind. So I left." His voice cracked on the last word. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. "Oh, dear boy," she whispered. "No one your age should have to go through that." She stood up and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You'll stay here tonight, all right? I've got a spare room. You can rest, and tomorrow we'll figure something out." Eli nodded, his eyes glistening. "Thank you, ma'am." That night, as Clara tucked him into the guest room with an extra blanket, she noticed the small smile on his face, the kind of smile that had forgotten how to exist. She turned off the light, whispered goodnight, and quietly prayed that she could help this boy find peace. The next morning, Eli woke up to the smell of pancakes. Clara greeted him with a cheerful smile and a plate full of food. As they ate, she asked more about his life. He told her about his mother, how she used to sing to him every night, and how he missed her voice more than anything. "I think she'd be proud of you," Clara said softly. "You've been so brave." Eli looked at her, his eyes full of gratitude. "You remind me of her," he said. "She used to make breakfast just like this." Over the next few days, Clara helped Eli get cleaned up, bought him some warm clothes from the thrift store, and introduced him to her neighbors. Everyone on Maple Street knew Clara's heart was big enough to shelter the world, so when they saw the boy staying with her, they didn't question it, they simply brought over food, clothes, and offers of help. One afternoon, while they were planting winter flowers in the garden, Eli looked up at Clara and said, "Why are you being so nice to me? You don't even know me." Clara smiled gently. "Kindness doesn't need to know someone, Eli. It just needs to see someone who needs it." That night, Eli couldn't sleep. He lay awake, thinking about Clara's words. For the first time in a long time, he felt safe. He felt seen. And that feeling began to warm the parts of him that had been cold for far too long. As the days turned into weeks, the small house on Maple Street began to feel more like a home than Eli had ever known. He started helping Clara with chores, running errands, and fixing little things around the house. He even began attending school again, with Clara's help and the support of the local community. The teachers noticed how eager he was to learn, despite the challenges he'd faced. Eli quickly became known as a polite, hard-working boy with a quiet strength. And Clara, well, she became known as his guardian angel. One evening, as the snow began to fall softly outside, Clara and Eli sat by the fireplace. The room was filled with the soft crackle of burning wood and the scent of apple pie cooling on the table. "Do you miss her?" Clara asked gently. Eli nodded. "Every day. But I think she'd be happy to know I'm here. With you." Clara smiled, tears in her eyes. "And I think she sent you to me, Eli. I didn't know how much I needed someone to care for until you came along." In that moment, something beautiful happened. The loneliness that had lingered in Clara's house for years began to fade, replaced by laughter, warmth, and the soft glow of shared kindness. Months passed, and Eli continued to grow, both in confidence and in spirit. Clara helped him apply for school programs, and he helped her with the garden that bloomed more vibrantly than ever that spring. Neighbors would often stop by and comment on how alive the house looked again. One day, the local social worker who had been helping Clara with Eli's paperwork came by with news. "We found a foster family willing to take Eli in," she said gently. "They're good people, and it's close enough that he can still visit." Clara smiled faintly, though her heart ached. She knew this day would come. She turned to Eli, who looked uncertain. "What do you think, dear?" she asked softly. Eli looked down, then at Clara. "I don't want to leave you," he said. "This is my home now." Clara reached out and held his hand. "Home isn't always a place, Eli. Sometimes it's the people who make us feel safe. You'll always have a home here, no matter where you go." Tears filled his eyes, but he nodded. "Will I still get to visit?" "Of course," she smiled. "You couldn't get rid of me even if you tried." A week later, when the foster family came to pick him up, the whole neighborhood gathered to say goodbye. Clara hugged Eli tightly, whispering, "You've brought so much joy into my life. Go make the world a little brighter, the way you did here." Eli hugged her back, his voice trembling. "You found me when no one else cared. I'll never forget that." And then he was gone. The house felt emptier after Eli left, but it wasn't the same kind of emptiness it had before. It was filled with echoes of laughter, memories of shared meals, and the spirit of kindness that had changed both their lives. Clara continued to volunteer, help others, and open her door to anyone who needed warmth. A year later, on a sunny spring afternoon, there was a knock at her door. When she opened it, she gasped. Standing there was Eli, taller, smiling, and holding a small pot of blooming daisies. "Hi, Mrs. Evans," he said shyly. "I thought your garden could use a few more flowers." Clara's eyes filled with tears as she pulled him into a hug. "Oh, Eli," she whispered, her voice trembling with joy. "You came home." He grinned. "You said kindness doesn't need to know someone, it just needs to see someone who needs it." "Well, I saw someone who needed flowers." Clara laughed through her tears. "And I see someone who brought them." From that day forward, Eli visited every week. He helped Clara around the house, shared stories about his school and new family, and never forgot the woman who had given him more than shelter. She had given him belonging. The little house at the end of Maple Street became a place of quiet magic, where kindness always found its way back home. The neighbors often said that when the sun set over that house, it glowed a little brighter than the others, not because of the paint or the lights, but because it held the love of two hearts who had once been lost and had found each other through kindness. Years later, long after Clara had passed on, people still spoke of her home as a place where kindness lived. And in the garden she and Eli had tended, the daisies bloomed every spring, as if to remind the world that sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can build a home in someone's heart forever. Because that's where kindness truly belongs, where it is shared, where it is remembered, and where it finds a home.